This is TWiT.
So, according to the New York Times, China has stopped recycling foreign garbage. In their op-ed section this week, the director of the Repair Association wrote, "One of the keys that we know can reduce waste is by repairing and reusing things instead of assuming that recycling will solve our problems." Joining us to talk about his fight for the right to repair is Kyle Wiens, founder of iFixit. Welcome back to the show, Kyle.
Hey, Megan, thanks for having me on.
So this week in the iFixit blog, you wrote about CalRecycle. That's the organization that oversees the nation's largest electronics recycling program. What can you tell us about the work of CalRecycle and how effective it is?
Yeah, CalRecycle is part of the California EPA, so it's our government program for paying for recycling of e-waste. You have things like CRT televisions, the old big TVs that have a lot of lead in them. It's expensive to recycle that, so CalRecycle runs a funding program to manage that. And what CalRecycle has been trying to figure out is where is the world of recycling electronics going to go over the next 10, 15 years, as Internet of Things is putting electronics into things that didn't used to be covered under electronics recycling. So your smart toaster that can tweet at you when your bagel is done, that's got a chip in it now, and that needs to go to an electronics recycler instead of a traditional recycler.
So they came out with a report, and what was important about the most recent report they came out with?
The report's really interesting because it's a shift. It's a major shift in how we approach recycling. You think of CalRecycling, you think they're focused on recycling. Well, one of their major priorities for the next decade is they want to provide incentives for repair and reuse of electronic devices to prevent recycling. So this is kind of a fascinating major shift where they're saying, hey, we want to actually move up the waste pyramid, move up the hierarchy, and if we can repair and reuse things, we'll actually be able to delay recycling it quite a while.
When I think of repair and in particular reuse, I think the word that comes to mind is standardization, right? Like this idea that, and in technology, I mean, there is some standardization, but really, technology companies love to have their secret sauce that no one else has, which makes reuse or repairing with parts that are easily accessible a really difficult thing to do. Is there any indication that any of this might involve like some sort of standardization of how these things would be built? I feel like maybe that goes outside of the purview of what this would be, but does that come into play at all?
They talked about a lot of the challenges around batteries. There isn't any recommendations in here for requiring manufacturers change their designs, but what they do recommend is right to repair legislation, which doesn't make any design changes necessary, but it does encourage manufacturers to share repair manuals, to make parts available to recyclers and refurbishers. So that would be one level of standardization of making sure if you're going to sell a product that there's information and parts available for fixing it. I think that would go a long way.
Sure.
So what about the dangerous chemicals that are involved in these products? Like, should we be worried about our opening up our iPhone or whatever? What do we need to be cautious of when we dig in and repair all these devices that are made with who knows what at this point?
Your iPhone will kill you.
Well, I think it will, but
the toxic iPhones leaching in. It's not a problem when you're using it, but it is a problem if you landfill them. So if you look on the label of any electronic device, there's a little trash can with a line through it. You can't put this stuff in the landfill because the heavy metals, even things like silver and gold that are in your electronics, can leach out into the water table and cause pollution. So it's important that these things not get landfilled, which as we have electronics and more kinds of things is becoming more and more of an issue. It's also important that electronics not go to your standard blue bin recycler. So this is an Apple Pencil. It has a very big battery. Almost the entire inside of it contains a battery. If you throw this in the blue bin, it could very easily cause a fire at your municipal recycling facility because they're not set up to handle this kind of thing. This has to go specifically to an electronics recycler.
Interesting. And I wonder how much people are actually, kind of negotiating that with themselves when it comes to recycling, electronics recycling. It's not the easiest thing in the world. There are some things that you can put into the blue bins, depending, right? Like the things that don't have screens, or is there anything that you could even fit into a blue bin?
You pretty much never want to put electronics in a blue bin.
All right, that's good to know.
But you can take it to Best Buy. Best Buy will take them for free.
Yeah.
There's Recycle 911 is a great website which lets you look up local recyclers. Right. But pretty much Best Buy is your like guaranteed bet where you can take just about anything. They might charge you for larger TVs, but smaller stuff they generally recycle for free.
Yeah, and I've taken stuff to, I think, Office Max here in town. We'll take it. Yeah. You can recycle for free.
Goodwill is also really good.
Yeah.
Goodwill will take things. But I think the key thing for the manufacturers to be thinking about, and I think if we can get people as we're buying products to think about, these integrated batteries are really causing a big cost problem for recycling. And that's why CalRecycle is looking at increasing recycling fees across the board. They're saying anything that has a power cord probably should be considered as electronics and go to an electronics recycler. So they're forecasting the volume of electronics that come into their facilities growing and growing and growing. But intriguingly, you have something like an Apple Pencil. A lot of times the average weight of these devices goes down. So there's not a whole lot of raw material in this for the recyclers to make money, but they have to cut it open and remove the battery carefully.
Is your Apple Pencil broken, and did you try to fix it?
So Apple Pencil got a 0 out of 10 on a repair score. It's funny. It's the only product that Apple sells that comes with a replacement part because you can replace the tip if the tip breaks. But the rest of it, now it's completely monolithic. And unfortunately, there's no good way to separate it. So we're not sure that this is a very recyclable product either, even if it goes to an electronics recycler. And that's increasingly the challenge. You glue products together. It's possible to make products that aren't recyclable and also are not legal to landfill. And I don't think we're doing a great job in the tech press of holding companies accountable to creating products. For example, the Apple Airpods, which are the hit of this year. Everybody loves them. They're selling tens of millions of them. The Airpods are not recyclable by any electronics recycler. They're not recyclable by a municipal recycler, and they're not legal to landfill. So put it in your drawer and keep it there forever.
Forever and ever and ever, and pretend that it's never going to go anywhere
Just leave
else.
them in your ears as an accessory.
Yeah, exactly.
Get used to wearing them all the time, even when the battery's dead. Every company, like I was saying before, every company, the technology companies especially, they have their secret sauce and they want that to stay secret. You mentioned on your site, iFixit.org/right, that proprietary codes are often used to kind of protect these things so that official people can fix it and no one else can, which, I mean, I can understand that a business wants to keep hold of its secrets, right? So there is that side, but you still want people to have the ability to fix and stuff on their own. How do you strike a balance between those things? Because they seem like competing forces.
Right. Yeah, this is a major problem for farmers right now because the tractors, like you'll have a big $250,000 John Deere tractor, and it's actually got a touchscreen interface in it. And if it has an error code that comes up, it'll say it's error P157. And they don't give the farmers the list of those error codes. So you have to pay the John Deere dealer to come out, plug his laptop into the tractor and tell you, hey, this particular sensor is broken. Ugh. So that's a major challenge for farm equipment. We're seeing that problem increasingly with cars. Independent repair shops are having a hard time working on Teslas because Tesla hasn't agreed to share the kinds of information with repair shops that every other car manufacturer is sharing. We see this with Nikon. Nikon used to make service information and tooling available to local camera shops, and a few years ago they stopped doing that. So systematically, manufacturers are trying to take control away from their customers, away from the rest of us, and away from local repair shops. And that's what the Right to Repair fight is all about, is trying to restore those rights.
So Assemblywoman Susan Eggman, she introduced the Right to Repair back in March. What is going on with it, and who supports it and who doesn't support it?
Yeah, Right to Repair legislation has been considered in 19 states across the U.S. this year. It's also being considered around the world. We've got folks in Europe and Canada that are thinking about it. The California bill was introduced, and it was going to be heard in the Environment Committee. And then some lobbyists pulled some dirty tricks and got it moved to another committee, and Eggman pulled the bill. So the California bill is dead for this year. It may come up again next year. Generally, there are not individual legislators that are opposed to it, but the primary organization fighting the Right to Repair laws is Apple. They are spending the most money. They're getting other organizations to represent them, but they're showing up. They told legislators in Nebraska that if Nebraska passed Right to Repair, it would turn Nebraska into a mecca for hackers. So we're seeing this grandiose fear, uncertainty, doubt on part of these corporate lobbyists, and we're fighting back with common sense as best as we can, but there's a lot more of them than there are us.
So someone in the chat room, Caillou, made a comment that I think is actually pretty important to this. He or she says, actually, I don't know. Saying, so everyone here agrees to recycle responsibly, but sadly, the people that don't know or don't care far outnumber those of us who do and just dump everything in the trash. Is that one of the bigger challenges that we face in this regard when it comes to e-waste around the world, that this kind of complacency that, well, it doesn't affect me when I put it in the trash and I just move on with my life?
Yeah, absolutely. The amount of raw material that goes into manufacturing these things is huge. It takes 500 pounds of raw material to make an iPhone. And then even when we recycle it, we can't get all the material back, but we can at least get some of it. So I think that's just a message that we have to get out there, is that it is a huge investment of resources, of material, of labor to make the things that we have. We should take really good care of them, use them for as long as we possibly can, and then as a last resort, get the most possible material back out of it. But that's something we have to be telling everybody. We have to really think through what is the impact of our consumption on the planet. If everyone in the world consumed at the rate that Americans do, we would need 13 Earths worth of resources. It just doesn't work. And at the same time, I mean, you're actually kind of sitting on a gold mine. A cell phone like this has 14 times as much gold in it as that amount of gold ore that you would mine out of the ground. So it's worth it. It's worth it to recycle these things and get the material out. Recyclers will pay for it. And so I think we have to get people to kind of hopefully act in their own self-interest. Usually recycling or even selling something is in your best interest. I always tell people that the most environmentally friendly thing that you can do with all your stuff is to sell it, is to give it to somebody else, keep it out there, keep it used. Hopefully, if you sell your last cell phone to somebody, then they'll use that instead of going and buying a new one.
Maybe worst case scenario is that we just take all the e-waste that we have, we attach it to a rocket, and we shoot it towards the sun.
Yeah, let's not do that. There you go. Okay. No, I totally believe that. I believe that with all my stuff. Like, I have just started selling like my clothes because at least someone is going to want it, because rather than just giving it to Goodwill, it ends up in landfills. I think the same as technology. It takes some time, and it kind of, you're not going to like make a living off of selling this stuff or anything, but you're totally right. Like, that if someone is willing to buy it, then they might buy it used. That's better than buying it new. Right. Are you using Poshmark? I am using Poshmark. And how's it going? It's going great. Awesome? Yeah. Do you use it to sell technology or just clothes? Just clothes. Now you use it to kind of check on, you're like, hey, how much is my closet worth? Let's go find out. It's weirdly addicting, isn't it? Yeah, Poshmark is awesome. You guys obviously know a secret. Meanwhile, I'm over here Googling Poshmark. What are you? But I have seen like Apple Watches. I've seen Apple Watch bands on there and like cases and stuff. I haven't bought any, but there is like some. If you want if you have an old Patagonia jacket, you can get over $100 for it on Poshmark. Mm-hmm. Dang. Yeah, I just like the idea that someone is going to use it if they're, putting money, even if it's like $7 for something that you might have paid $150 for. You just think, well, somebody's going to use it. Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, as long as someone's paying for it, it's going to get used. Yeah. Well, Kyle, thank you as always for sharing our shared Poshmark addiction, and but especially for your fighting for the right to repair and all your work that you do at iFixit. Kyle, of course, is a repair activist, right to repair activist, and the founder of iFixit. Go check it out. Check out all their videos of tearing Apple's products apart. It's very soothing, even if you never intend to fix your stuff, which you should. Absolutely. Or sell it. Well, thank you, and thanks to all the hardworking folks at CalRecycle who worked for a couple of years putting this report together. It's really exciting to see the hard work of our civil servants. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. We'll talk to you soon.